You have probably heard somewhere that Framer is one of the best design platforms to design and publish websites without writing a single line of code, and you felt very interested in learning Framer. But the issue is this: you don't just know how and where to start your Framer journey. In this video, I'll be showing you on how to create this beautiful and silk website. If you're a beginner and you probably haven't opened Framer for once, this video will guide you through every point you need to know in creating this professional and beautiful website. So without further ado, let me introduce myself. I'm Praise Eniwe and you're welcome to my channel, and let's get started. To make this tutorial more easy for you to digest, we're breaking it into sections. The first section we're going to be looking at here is setting up your frame for a responsive site. We will then move on into designing the hero section on how to apply this button animation here. Next up, I'll be showing you how to achieve and create this motion background in the hero section. Next up, we'll be creating the top navigation and optimizing it for the mobile frame. Moving to the second section of this design, I'll be showing how to make use of sticky positioning and scroll transform to achieve this kind of effect. Then last, we'll be optimizing our design from the desktop to the tablet and to the mobile application screen. Then we're publishing this design right to the internet with a click of a button. So without further ado, let's jump right in. If you don't have a Framer account, you can head on to framer.com and it will be easy for you to log in, start for free. It takes less than a minute to get through that. Starting with the first section, which is setting up your desktop for a responsive site. But before we do that, if you want a very detailed tutorial on how to navigate through Framer, user interface, the tools and everything, there's a very detailed video on my channel. Do well to check that. To set up your desktop for a responsive site, you have to first turn it into a stack. So you can access that layout here plus, or you use the shortcut Ctrl+Alt+Enter to select a stack. The next thing we are going to be doing is to change the gap to 0 and make sure the distribution starts, which will allow all the frames to start from the top. Next up, we'll be bringing out all the breakpoints we are going to be using. So tablet goes here and you click one more to add the phone breakpoint. The second thing I like doing to maintain a responsive site is to bring in another frame that will house all the elements that we're going to be adding in. So F on your keyboard and you'll be selecting out a frame. Going to the properties panel, we are going to be changing the width of it to fill content, and also we'll be changing it into a stack, and that's it there. Then I'll be bringing out everything, increasing the height of it. Let's take it to somewhere around here. But if you notice, you will see that the frame of the desktop is kind of limiting the frame that is inside of it. So how do we get through this? It's pretty easy to set up. So since the desktop is a frame, we can go to the desktop, go to the height of it and set it to fit content. So what this means is that whatever width that is going to be the frame inside is just going to adopt nicely. So that is it for that. So let's just remove the fill color of the frame. We will then rename this section to main section. To make sure that this section is easily recognizable by the search engine when we publish this site, we have to add a tag to it that will tell the search engine that this section here is the main section. To achieve that, we'll be adding accessibility and a tag to it. Then on the tag, we will then change it to main. So when the search engine, when we load it on the site, is easily recognizable by, will I say, the algorithm. To maintain accessibility or optimization, that was what I was looking for, we change it to main so that it's easily recognizable. So the next thing we're going to be doing is to now bring in frames that will now house each sections. So we'll be starting with the hero section. Like I said, we will then bring out a frame that will start with the hero section. So F on your keyboard to bring out another frame. You then change the width of it to fill. Then you rename the section as hero section. But as you can see here, our hero section is supposed to start from the top of the desktop, not just at the middle, because that's not where we want our hero section to be. So how do we control the behavior of this frame to stick to the top of the desktop? Like I always say in my tutorials, the behavior of the primary frame inside it is controlled by the secondary frame or the parent frame or the parent stack. So to change the behavior of this our primary frame inside the main section. We select the main section there and go to the properties panel. On the layout option, the distribute is set to center. We have to change that to start, so you can start from the top of the frame. But we are not just there yet. We have to align it also to stick to the top of the frame. So that's when it will just adapt to it nicely. Next up, we'll be removing the fill color from the hero section because we're not going to be making use of that. But are you wondering right now that why do we have to set a stack, and why didn't we just leave the desktop like that and start designing on it? This is the reason for that. Let me just take this little example. So F on your keyboard, let's bring out a frame. We will then duplicate this and put it at the side of it. So these are two ordinary frames. This is the normal setting of the desktop that it was before we turned it into a stack. And let's turn the second frame here into a stack. Let me show you the difference. So by bringing in an element, let's just press F on our keyboard to bring in a frame inside the normal frame. So by putting that in, you will see that we have the ability to shift it anywhere on the frame. So the type here on the properties panel is set to absolute. This means we have the ability to move the frame anywhere on the canvas of the frame and nothing will happen. But to maintain a responsive site, we have to take some safety measures to make sure our site is fully responsive. That's why we'll change it into a stack. Going to the one that has the stack, I'll be bringing out a frame inside it, just like this. One thing you will notice that when we created the frame around here, the thing jumped and entered to the center of the frame. So a stack helps us to keep things responsive in a very ordered way. It's easier to set this frame to fill width, and it's going to adapt to the width of the frame. So if we increase it to anywhere just around the frame, you see it's going to adapt to the width of it. And on the normal frame, we don't even have the ability to change it to fill width. It's not just clicking. So to change it to a fill width, we have to change it from absolute to relative. And for it to change it from absolute to relative means that you have to turn it into a stack. So that is it for that. Let me show you more example of which you can use a stack for. So let's assume we want to duplicate this our frame inside the stack. All we have to do is just to Ctrl D and Ctrl D. You'll see everything follows in a horizontal path. And if you want to change the path of it, the direction of it from horizontal to vertical, we can do that through the layout option or through the start section. So this is it here, is on horizontal. Let's change it to vertical, and you will see the frames of it is now in a vertical position. We can also control the gapping between each frames in a stack. So going down to the gap here, we can increase the gap, and this is it here. We can also choose to add padding to it. This is it here. Just type in any figure you want. Let's just say 100 padding on all sides. So it's just going to keep this spacing of 100, 100, 100 on all the sides. Then if we choose to, let's change this down to 0. If we choose to go more in depth in giving a very detailed padding to our frame, we have to do that through this other side. And let's just say we want a padding of 100 at the top. We can do that here, and it's going to keep a padding of 100 just at the top here. Then padding on below, same 100. Everything is just fully responsive. So this is why we use stack to set up our desktop for a responsive site, because it's easier to maintain responsiveness in a stack than in a normal frame. So let's head back to our design. Let me just remove this. On the hero section, let's change the accessibility, bring out a tag and set it to, I think, section we do, so it can be easily recognizable as a section on our website. So that is it. The next thing we are going to be doing now is to bring in our element, which is the text and our buttons. But before we do that, let's bring in another frame that will contain all those elements. So F on your keyboard, a frame like this. We can rename this as element section. Then we just change this tag to fill width. I don't know what is wrong. It's not giving us access to choose fill width. I think there's a problem somewhere. Let's select our hero section. Yep, we didn't turn it into a stack, so that is why we didn't have the ability to turn the frame inside the hero section into fill width. So let's change the layout of the hero section into a stack, and let's go back to the element section and check the fill width. So now it's back to fill width. We can set it to fill width and also remove the fill color just down here. But before we remove the fill color, let's just bring it back. I just want to show you guys one example before we do that. So what I want to do now is to control the behavior of the element section, because I don't want the element, our text, to scale out of proportion when it's on a bigger screen or when it's on a smaller screen. So to control the width of this section, we have to change it to max width. So on the properties menu, go on to max width here and be setting it to fixed. Then you change it to 1000. Let's just go 1000, one more zero, and there we go. So by setting it to max width, this means that the width of the element section will stop growing if it's more than 1000 pixels. But if we reduce the viewport, which is going into that breakpoint, it's going to adapt to it. But anything more than 1000, it will stop its growth at this level of the element section. So in that way, it's giving us this ability to maintain how big or how small our element inside the element section would grow. So let's start adding our element. Let's just go ahead to remove this fill color right here. I forgot to mention the main design that I created is still on the same tutorial link I'm going to share in the description. So this is, you can set it on the home part of the page and you will see the main design here, and the tutorial page is just below it. So hit T on your keyboard to bring out a text. I'll be typing inside the element section of the hero section. So be writing out something like advanced Framer tutorial with no coding. You cannot see the text right now because it's actually a black one. Let's just change the color to white. I don't even know if I made error. Let me check that out. We then change the size of it to 70 and hit enter. Next up, since it's going out of the frame, I think we have to set it to fill width. It's not even I think, we have to set it to fill width. Then the next thing to do is to change the alignment, because I want it to fold at the center. What I really wanted is to allow this advanced framer to be at the first line and this tutorial with no code be at the second line, just as how it is on the main design. So to achieve that, we have to set a max width to it so we can control how wide it can expand and how low it can. I don't know if that makes sense. So to fix this, we'll be setting the max width. It's just on the properties panel on the sizing option. So select the min max that you see here and select max width. We'll then change it from relative to fixed and let it slide. Let's just raise our arrow key down to see the one that best fits. So around 783, or let's just round it up to like 800. So everything will just be like a round figure. So it's same thing now on the hero section. But if you notice, there's kind of a two color thing here, where this advanced framer tutorial with stopping there is another color. Then this no code is kind of brighter than the other ones. The reason why I did this is because I wanted to lay emphasis on the no code. So let's just go right there to change it. We then select from this tutorial up. Okay, I think it's from the width. So we then select this and change the color of it. So I think, let me check this out real quick. On the colors panel, okay, I use D1, D1, D1. So let me just quickly change that to D1 and hit enter. Then for the no code, I'll be changing it to pure white. There we go. So that's it, and we're actually heading somewhere. The next thing is to create our subtext. So what you are going to be doing is to duplicate this, Ctrl D, then you select everything. Let me go to the home page because I don't want to waste much of our time. Let's just create and duplicate and paste it on our own design. So double click to select everything and Ctrl and V. So we'll be changing the size of it to around 16, I guess. So let's go with 16. So this is perfect. We then change it from semi-bold to around regular because I don't want it to be that bold. But if you notice, we don't want the direction to be in a horizontal part, rather we want it to be in a vertical part where the layers will fall under each other. So to change the direction of this frame, where do we go? To the parent frame of the element section. So the parent frame is the element section, don't get this twisted, and is not the main frame. So to control the behavior of the element frame, we go to the hero section, and to control the element of the element inside the element frame, we go to the element section. So don't get that confused. So selecting the element section, you go to the direction and change it to vertical. You'll see that it's going to fall under each other just like how we want it to be. So we'll go again. I want this subtext to fold into like 2 lines. Let me just drag this max width, because it's actually set to max width. So let's just drag this down. Okay, we can do better with this. So somewhere around here is good to roll. Next up, we'll be creating our button that we're going to use to complete this hero section. So let me go back to the main design to show you guys interaction we are going to be creating real quick. So when I load this site, by hovering through one of the button, you see it creates the button with the star, and when we hover out of it, it changes to the button without the star effect. Same thing applies to this learn more button. Everything is just so nice. So to achieve this kind of effect, we are going to create 2 variants. One variant with the icon, with the star icon, and the second variant without the star icon. So let's just go down into the practical. We will then make a copy of this as subtext, Ctrl D to copy it. Then on the properties menu, we are going to simply change the size of it to around 10 pixels. We will then change the fill color of the text to pure white, so just like that, and we're good to roll. Next thing is to bring in the content. We'll be changing the content of the text to something like start now. I think that's what I use, but we're having just one pinky issue to resolve here. You see that the width of the frame is somewhere from here to here, and you cannot just have a button with that large width. Like, who creates a button with that large width? So to solve this, we are simply going to select our text, turn it into a stack, then we'll know what to do from there. But one problem Framer has is this: you cannot just simply set a text to a stack from the properties menu like we do on other frames. Like, it's not just there. When you search on the properties menu, you won't see that layout option to select a stack. The second way around that is to use the shortcut Ctrl Alt Enter, and you'll see it automatically change into a stack. So let's just rename this right here as button. There we go. But you see, we are having a much larger problem. The size, the width of our button just got much more wider. So we're having a button size from here to the other end of the element section, which is not supposed to be so. So to solve this, we are simply going to head back to the properties menu and change the width of it from fill to fit content, so you can fit the content of the button. But if you notice right here, you will see it still went back to the way it was before we set it to be a stack. So to solve this, I think the issue is coming from the text itself. We are going to simply select only the text, the start now text, head back to your layers panel. I'll be changing the width of it from fixed to fit content. It fits the content of our text actually, but we are left with this staggered version of our text. So I think the issue is coming from just one thing. If you can remember, on the subtext, we set a max width to it to control how wide our text can grow and how small it can grow. So if you are looking at the properties menu of the text, you see this max width that is here from the previous version of the subtext. So we are simply going to remove this. So right click and select the remove button. So that is it, our button is back to normal. Next up, we'll be adding a fill color to this button to give it that nice effect. But before we do that, there's a new trick I learned and I want to show you guys how to go about that. It's really going to help you speeding up things when you're designing. So what I'm going to do now is to add a blending mode to our text. So by selecting a blending mode on this text, what this does is that no matter the background color we are going to change it to, the color of the text is nicely going to be visible. So if we change it to a fill color of white, and knowing that the fill color of the text is also white, by setting it to a blending mode, it's going to nicely adapt to another color which is black. that will fit the white background of the fill color. To cut the talk time, let's just go into the practical. So I'll be selecting the text, head down to your properties menu and look for where you have styles. I'll be selecting styles and I'll be applying a blending mode to it. Then on the blending mode, I will change it from multiply to difference. So let me show you now the difference between what we have done. We'll be adding a fill color to the button. Let's just select the button and add a fill color to it. When we did that, you will notice one thing. Initially, the color of our text was white, and by setting a white background, it automatically changes it to a black text. So this can save you a lot of time when you're looking for the best color that will fit your content or your frame. So let's continue with adding padding to create a nice button, because this button right here is not looking presentable. By going to the padding on the layers panel, we are simply going to add a top padding of 10 to it, then a padding of 20 to the right hand side, a padding of 10 below, and a padding of 20 at the left hand side. I don't just know why I'm interchanging right and left. So this is it. Our button is coming alive. Let's just simply round the corners of our button just to give it a safe space. After adding padding to the button, we are simply going to create that star icon that you saw in that interaction. So head outside your frame, hit F on your keyboard, and we'll be selecting out just something small like this. Then rename the section to, let's just say star icon. We are good to roll. Then you remove the fill color. On the element section here, you will see Framer added a new section that helps us create vector shapes inside of Framer. So it's a new feature Framer added, and let's use it to our advantage. So let's select a frame, head down to where you have this rectangle, select it, then come back to where we have the frame that we created and select another frame right inside of it. Next up, you double click to select a part to create that star effect. I'll be adding a clipping, I don't know what it's called, but I'll be adding this stuff to 4 sides of the frame so it can enable us to create that perfect star we are looking for. Basically, what we would then do from here is to bring in this to somewhere around here and bring in the second one to somewhere around here. So just make sure that the spacing between here and here is on the same level. We will then do the same thing for this side, bring it out like this, and one more to go, just bring it in to somewhere around here. We will then smoothen the ends of all the sharp ends, this pointy ends here. So to do that, you simply double click again and select each end of the star. Going to the radius, we will then add a padding of like 0.5. Let's just go with 0.6. What we then do from here is to make a copy of this our star to somewhere around here and hit K on your keyboard to reduce the size of it. So we want one size to be small and one size to be big. So this one will be somewhere around here. We then change the color of it to a black one. So this one is black, and this one won't be totally black, somewhere grayish. I don't know if that's a word. Next up, we will then import this into our button. So Ctrl X to cut and head back to our button, and Ctrl and V to paste it. So it kind of increased the size of our button, but we don't mind because it's still okay. Yeah, it's still okay. Using our arrow key, we then shift the position of this star because we want it to be at the left hand side. So using your arrow key, you can do that smoothly. So to create that interaction that you saw, we have to change this button into a component. But before that, this color is kind of too dark. So let me just lighten it a little bit. Like I was saying, you then change the button into a component. So right click on your keyboard and create component, or use the shortcut Ctrl Alt K on your keyboard to select a component. We can just leave this as hover, button hover, whatever way it should be, and create a component. So you see, it's going to lead us into another canvas. This is no new thing if you are conversant with Framer. It will create a new section that will house all your components, and if you choose to go back to the home page where you have your design, you simply have to just click this home page and to lead you back to your design. Then to go back to the component canvas, you double click on it and to lead you right back into the canvas. Before we add the second variant, the one with the star, we have to first create a first variant without the star icon. So we are simply going to select the frame of the star icon and change the the position of it from relative to absolute. So we are simply just going to shift this, we are simply going to select the star icon and shift this to the left hand side. Then go down to your properties menu and look for where you have opacity and change it to 0. So we then add a second variant to it to create that hover effect. So you select this button, just click it. It will give you these two options, either to make it a hover or to make it pressed. This is one of the reasons why I like Framer, because if you are using Figma to create components and interaction, you will be the one to decide whether it will be a hover state or a press state. But Framer just gives you this option to choose whether it's going to be hover or press, making things very easy. So we're going to select the second variant. We want it to be hover, of course. To select hover to create another variant. This is where we then change the star icon frame back to relative. So we just change it back to relative and bring in the fill color to 1. So what if I tell you now we just created our hover button, like it didn't just even waste much time. So by previewing this, when we hover through the button, you see it's going to create the actual effect we are looking for. But let's just add a style to it. We want this star effect to kind of rotate into the second variant. So how do we go about that? Let me just show you how to do that. I'll be selecting the frame or the first variant and rotate it to around 20. Then I don't think we need to do much on this part. We just have to change it back, because one thing is this: the first variant controls the second variant. So when we are controlling and tweaking things around in the first variant, is affecting the second variant. But when we apply this effect to the second variant, it doesn't affect the first variant it started with. So let's just change this back to 0. So by previewing this, I hope this works. So by previewing this, you will see the way that our star icon kind of rotated into the second variant. So that is the effect I was looking for. When we head back into our design, we can also preview it, Ctrl and P, and it's just giving that effect that we are looking for. It's just that easy. We'll be adding another variant for the second button, the Learn More button. So hit Ctrl D on your keyboard to copy this button. But if you can see here, the two buttons are in a vertical path, but we want them to be in a horizontal path. How do we condition it again? Since the behavior of the element stack is set to vertical, so how do we condition things to set only this button set to horizontal? It's quite simple. It's just to set the both buttons, select both of them and turn it into a stack. So Ctrl Alt Enter. Then from here we can set the direction to vertical and it's going to adopt nicely. From the main design, the second button was just a black fill with a white stroke on it. So let's quickly fix that. Go down to the tutorial. Then changing the color of it, we don't have the access to it because it's already a component. So to do that, we have to go back to the component canvas to do that. So you simply double click on it. But one thing happens. Let me just show you. If we choose to change the color to, let's just say, dark one, but going back to the main design, you see that the effect, the color that we added, applied to both buttons, which is not supposed to be. So that is not what we are looking for. So how do we condition it in a way that the color is going to affect only the second button that we want it to be? So we are going to be using what we call component variables to condition this kind of thing. So head back to your design, to the component canvas, and let's Ctrl Z to return this back to where it was. So by your right hand side, you will see another button. This is to add a second variant. So let's just do that, and we have the second variant. So from here we can now change the color of it to black. So let's just do this. Then next up, we're adding a border to it, which is also a stroke. So let's just change it to something like this. Going back to our main tutorial page. So how do we change it from the first variant to the second variant? It's pretty easy to do. Go to your properties panel, you'll see this new section, button hover, which is what we set the component to be. Then the variant under it, we now have the ability to choose from variant 1 to variant 2. So one more thing to finalize on this button, we have to change the text of it from this start now to learn more, because that's what it is, that's what I use on this place. So going back to the design, let's just do that quickly. Head back to the component canvas and change it to learn more. To add the second state of this button, we just have to click the plus here and add a hover state. Let's change the color of this our star icon because it's in a black background and the color of the icon is also black. So let's just change the opacity of it to 1 so that we can see what we are doing. So change it to 1, and the shape inside, the dark one, let's just change it to white. So just do this here and it will adapt to the second one here. Then return it back to the 0 it was because we don't want it to be visible on the first variant of it. So on the second one, you select it, you change it from the absolute to the relative and also make it visible. So go down to the opacity and add the opacity there. Okay guys, I really want to apologize because I was just looking at my recording software from OBS and I noticed that my zoom was kind of locked in. So sorry about that. I will just adjust that. So continuing from where we stopped, let's Ctrl P this to preview and going down to everything. Yes, creating that effect that we want. But there's one issue that we need to address here. Our button is jumping and each time we hover through the second variant, it's just jumping other frames with it. So this is an issue from Framer. I've noticed it a lot of time when creating website in Framer. But I found a way to stabilize things to prevent this jumping effect. So going back to the actual design, let's go over to the properties panel of the button variant. You see this component here which says layout jump preventer. So we are simply going to select it, Ctrl and C to copy it. Next up, you go into the component canvas so that we can be able to place that component we just copied. So Ctrl and V to paste it and make sure that it's the first thing above all the layers. So let's just show it to the top. This component we just applied is an invisible component. That's why you cannot see any effect on it, but there's actually a change when we add it to our variant. So let's go back and make sure it's also on the second variant. Yep, it's on it. So when we apply it from the first variant, it automatically applies to other variants with it. So going back to the tutorial page, Ctrl P to preview. So by doing this, you'll see how smooth it is now. It's not really that jumping as much as it was then. So this is how we can prevent that jumping effect using this component. So while previewing what we have done so far, I noticed just one tiny issue again. So this tutorial is all about finding problems that you don't even know that exist and looking for a way we can be able to fix them. So this is the issue here. I don't want our text to be selectable. I don't want it to be draggable. Same thing applies for the button because we can actually move our text, which is not a good thing when it's an actual website. So how do we prevent this whole stuff? Let me head back to the design and show you guys how you can solve that. It's pretty simple to do. You first select your first text, go down to the properties and look for where you have styles. Where is it? It's somewhere around here. I don't know why this stuff is always missing. Okay, see it here, click the styles and we'll be setting pointer event to it. Just click the pointer event, automatically set to none. Then head back to the same styles and look for user select. By bringing out these two styles, your pointer event and user select, and making sure it's set to none, it will solve that problem of your text being draggable or highlighted. Let me try to highlight this. You see I don't have that access to highlight or either to drag this element, but whereas on this one we have the access to it simply because we have not applied it to it. So let's do the same for this. Head back to your design, you go to your styles, you select your pointer event to none and go back to styles and select user select to none. Previewing this, Ctrl P or you just press the play button there. Selecting this, you see we don't have the access to create a highlight or to drag the subtext. So what's left is our buttons. Selecting our text, you head down to your styles, this is around here. You select your pointer event to none and go back to select your user select to none. So by applying this to one variant, it applies to other variant on this component board. So let me quickly preview this to check if that worked. So by trying to highlight the text or dragging it, you will see we don't have that access anymore. So that's one thing I really wanted to clear out when previewing what we have done so far. So talking about the spacing between these elements, we have to really adjust some things. I really want the spacing between the subtext and the head text to be much closer than the spacing between the subtext and the button, because if we choose to change the gapping of it, you see that the gapping applies to all the elements within the element frame. But in this case, we want the gapping of the subtext and the head text to be much closer than the gapping between the subtext and the buttons. So how do we go about that? This is where stack comes in again and again and again. So we're going to select the first text and the subtext and set it to a stack. So Ctrl Alt Enter to set a stack. In this way, we then have the ability to drag the subtext closer to the head text, and if we want to separate, let there be much spacing between the subtext and the buttons, all we have to do is just to toggle out this, and you see that the gapping doesn't affect the two elements we set to a stack. So we are done laying out our desktop for a responsive site, setting our text inside the hero section, applying our buttons, applying the animations. Now it's time to take things to a more advanced way, where I'll be showing how you can achieve this animated background that you're seeing on the hero section. I mean, is that easy? Anytime I say it's easy to do some things, just know it's really easy, because it's really easy. So to go about this, it's actually a component just like how we had that jumper preventer. So I just copied it and pasted it to my hero section to create this motion background that you're seeing here. This background gives this hero section more vibe, makes it look more rich, and that's what we are going to be doing right now. So it's a component, like I said, we are simply going to be copying it and pasting it on our design. So it's an animated gradient background. So this is it here, just Ctrl C. To paste the component on our canvas, we have to first select the hero section that's housing all the elements where we want it to be. So Ctrl and V to paste it. You will see something like this. It's easy to fix, but the reason behind this is because the type is set to relative. And if we really wanted to fill the four corners of the hero section, using a stack will not help us achieve that. So we are simply going to change it from relative to absolute. So in this way, we now have the ability to place it anywhere on the design canvas. But if you can see here, it's kind of cutting inside of the element frame. So you Ctrl X to cut it out of the frame, and I want it to be on the main section, the hero section. So Ctrl and V. So yeah, this is what I was looking for, because I didn't want it to be inside of the element frame. So to set and spread this all over the frame to fill the width of the hero section, you go to your absolute. On this panel that you're seeing here, you change everything, all the size to 0. So you change the right hand side to 0, change the below to same 0, and change the left hand side to 0. So in this way, you will see that it fills the full frame of the hero section. And you are probably having this question on how we can flip this animated background to the back of the element section. So we are going to using a style called Zindex to achieve this. So what Zindex does is that it helps you take things behind an element. So if you want this animated background to go to the back of the frame that is behind it has to have a higher Zindex than the one that is in the front. On the properties menu, you will see that the style here, the Zindex is set to 1. So for you to bring out a Zindex, you can access that through the styles here. Since I've already brought it out, it's already in the default state. So this is how you can bring out a Z index. I don't know, I just like pronouncing it Zindex instead of Z index. I don't know, but that is how you can bring out a Zindex. So now the Zindex is set to 1, meaning that the element section behind it has to have a higher Zindex, like I said. So you select the element section, then you go to your properties menu and add a style. So the style you are going to be adding is Zindex, which is just below here. So the Zindex, like I said, it has to carry a higher Zindex for the element to go behind this section. So since the Zindex of the background is 1, let's just go with something like 3. And when we do that, you will see the background went to the back of the element section. Talking about the animated background and how you can keep it running, let me just show you how you can go about that. So select the animated background. So there's a new section for this component, animated gradient background. We have so many presets under this animated background. The one presently is called Prism, and if we change to lava, you see it's giving this lava effect. And for you to see it in motion, you simply just change the preview to yes. So then you can now see the lava effect taking place. You also have other presets. You want to change to plasma, or let's go with plus. So you can see they are all beautiful. You can just put anyone on your site, it's always going to adopt. The last one here, which is custom, is left for you to customize your own background on how you want it to be. But in this case, we're using Prism because I just love the way the background is animating. Let's change the preview to no because we want to reduce the opacity of the background. So I'll be selecting the opacity and going with something like 0.26. This shouldn't be too much, or it's not too much. Let's reduce it just a little bit, somewhere around here, so our text can be visible. Then in this case, we can turn it back to preview. Same on this line, we have the ability to change the speed of it. So if we increase it, you will see the background, the speed of the animation goes faster. So let's return it back to the way it was. Next, I'll be creating this responsive navigation bar. Why did I say it's responsive? By previewing it, when I reduce my viewport, you will notice something, that when it gets to the mobile version, it switches to another type that fits the mobile version. And by increasing the viewport to the desktop size, you will notice it brings out another top nav that fits the content of the desktop frame. So let me do this again. By reducing the viewport, it changes from another variant to a second variant that fits the mobile phone, because we can't have all this element chalked up in our mobile screen. It's going to be too much. So I found a way on how to make this responsive, and by clicking this hamburger icon, I still have access to see all those text that was on the desktop view. So it's easier this way rather than chunking everything up in the mobile screen. So if you're already thinking on how we achieve this, yes, we use about 3 variants to create this animation. So the first variant, let me just go back to this. The first variant is the one that belongs to the desktop, and when we reduce our viewport, the second variant is the one that belongs to the mobile application. And by clicking this hamburger icon, the third variant is this particular one, and by going back, leads us back to the second variant. So let me show you right away on how you can get this done. First thing first, we're going to bring out a frame. So F on your keyboard and drag out something small like this. You also make sure the height is set to 60 pixels because that's what I actually use on the main design. On the fill, we're going to change the fill color to black one and change it into a stack right there. So inside the stack, we're going to bring out a content frame that will house all the element frame that is going to be on the top nav. Just like how we did it on the hero section, we mapped out the hero section frame, then mapped out another frame, the element frame that will house all the elements in it. So we'll be doing that exact same thing here. So F on your keyboard and we'll drag out another frame inside of it. We will set it to a stack. We then set it to fill width over here, then remove the fill color. We can name this as content nav. So this is the frame that all the elements is going to fall under. Let's start in scouting out for the logo. So for the logo of Framer I used on the home page of it, this is a Framer logo. You can also get that right inside of Framer. To access your icons, you click this insert, go down to where you have element icons. Just pick any icon pack of your choice. I like using this one called feather. Going over to the properties menu, we are going to go down to where we have this section for the icon pack. You just click it and search for Framer. So this is right here. I'm just going to click it and it's going to change right on the present icon. I will change the color of the icon pack to white, just like this. So Ctrl X to cut it, Then select the content frame that we mapped out, then Ctrl and V to paste it. So there we have our icon. The second thing we are going to be looking out for is bringing out our text. So on your keyboard, we then write out something like resources. We then change the color of it to something white, but not actually white because this is an inactive text. It's when we click it, then it activates the active part of it. So I'm simply going to reduce it to something not too dark and not too bright. So something like this is equal to row. So Ctrl X to cut and Ctrl and V to paste it. So like I said, I want to create this interaction between the inactive and the active text. So I'll turn this into a component, create a component, and let's just quickly name this as hover. I'll be selecting hover as the interaction. Then I'll make the color of the second variant to white. So this is it, just change it to white right here. So it's that simple. When I preview this, Ctrl and P, when I hover through this, you will see it changes from the inactive to the active when my mouse comes in contact with it. We will then duplicate this text and write out something like about us. But when I try to change the text, it leads me back into the component canvas. And I showed you this example before that when we change the text of the present text that is a component without setting out a component variable, the changes is going to affect to all variants tied to this particular component. So we use component variables to distinguish our component. To select a component variable, since it's the text I want to set to a component variable, I'll just simply click the text. Going to the resource panel where you have the content of the text, I'll be clicking this little plus that we have here to select a variable. Then when you select a variable, you then click the next option, which is plain text. I'll be renaming this as nav variable. We can just leave it as nav. Okay, nav text will work. So heading back to the design, on the second variant, we now have the ability to actually change the text from the main design canvas. So we can change this here to about us. I will then duplicate this text because I want them to be 3 numbers actually. So for the last one, I'll go with something like more tutorials. Let's just tutorials. Taking a closer look at our text, you will see it's kind of chopping out of the frame is in. So how to solve this? Normally we will usually set the width to fit content so it can fit the content of the frame, but nothing actually happened because when we set it to fit content, it's supposed to fit the content of the text and our text is actually spread out. But because it's a component variable that is linked to a master component, we don't have the authority to make a difference on the variables. We actually go direct to that main component and change it to fit content, and everything will just adapt. Going back to the component canvas, you can select any of the text. It will lead you to the same component canvas. I'll be setting the first variant of it and change the width to fit content. So by setting the main component to fit content, it will fit the content of other component variables that came out from this particular component. So heading back to our design, you see that actually took effect on the text. The next thing we are going to be adding is a button. So turn your keyboard and we'll be selecting start now. We then add a few background to it, and after then we'll be adding padding to make that fine button. So heading down to the padding, we'll select a top padding of 10, select a top padding of 20, then 10 below and 20 on the left. We then round the corners of this button, Ctrl X to cut it and Ctrl and V to paste it on the frame. If we were creating a top navigation for only the desktop frame, this present information is good to row and we can just simply impute it in our design, then we'll move on into the next step. But since we are creating a top navigation that is responsive to a mobile screen, we have to think far and beyond this. But what do I mean? This is a catch here. Everything that is needed to create a responsive top nav that will adapt into the mobile screen has to be added right from the desktop top nav. For example, when we click this hamburger icon, it leads us into another variant of it. I'm not really concerned about the element on the left hand side. I just want you to pay close attention to the transition between the close state and the hamburger icon. So when we click the hamburger icon, it changes its state to a close state, a cross state, and when we click the close state, it leads us back into the hamburger icon. Another thing is this button. It's visible on this variant, but when we change the state from the hamburger icon to the close state, the button is nowhere to be found. So all this interaction is what we have to calculate and find out how we can fix them right inside the desktop top nav to be able to create that responsive top navigation that fits into the mobile. So if I should increase my viewport, you won't see the hamburger icon again because it's not meant to be in the desktop. It only activates when it reaches the point of the mobile screen. So all this interaction is what we are going to be looking out for on how to add them inside the top nav of the desktop. I know I've mentioned a lot of transition between the hamburger to the close state and the button to another state. Don't be confused because it's going to be an easy one. The first thing we are going to be looking out for is the hamburger icon. So F on your keyboard and select out a frame. Make sure that the width is 34 and the height to 34 also. Then you remove the fill color. I'll be renaming this as menu, so let's just with a U. Next up, we'll be creating the hamburger icon. So F on your keyboard again and select out a frame. For the width of it, we're going with a width of 14, and for the height, just 2 pixels will do. You then change the fill color, so let's go with something like this. You then make sure that it's centralized on the menu frame. So you select both frames and align it to the center here. So the next thing we're going to be doing is to create that interaction from the hamburger state to the close state. And to do that, you simply turn this into a component to right click. We can go with menu as the name. We then rename the variant 1 to open state because the hamburger icon is literally in the open state. So let's just leave it as open state. We then select another variant, so click those one and add a variant. The second variant is going to be the close state, so let's just do that. For the close state, we want to form that cross icon. To do that, you are going to select the both frames of the close state. So just select both of them and align it vertically. So the shortcut for it is Alt plus V on your keyboard. Then I'll be selecting one frame and align it, rotate it to an angle of 45 degrees. Then select the other one and still rotate it to an angle of 45 degrees. So in this way, it's perfectly aligned. So if we were to create an interaction between these two, we can just connect it just like this. So when we preview this and we click on the hamburger icon, it leads us into the close state. And when we click the close state, it's not leading us back to the hamburger icon because we didn't create that interaction. But I'm just trying to show you the interaction that we just did, not like we're going to be creating that prototype. So let's go ahead by removing this interaction because this is not what you are looking for. I just wanted to show you the interaction from it. So go back to the main tutorial page. We will then insert this hamburger icon into the desktop. So Ctrl X to cut and select the content frame of it, Ctrl and V to paste it. I'll then change the position of it to the side of where we have the logo. The next thing to do is to start fixing this top now because we can't have all the elements at the center. One has to be by the left, the right, and the other one has to be by the left. To fix that, you select the Framer logo and the hamburger logo and group them into a stack. After wrapping it in a stack, we can't just have them at the center here. We can change the distribute and the properties menu from the center to the start. So you can start, can start from the starting of the left hand side. So we'll do the same for the button. You wrap it into a stack. So select the button, Enter to select a stack. We will then change the direction of it from center to end because I want it to be at the end of the top nav. Next up, we then group all the text in a stack. So select everything, the resources, the about us, more tutorials, Enter to select a stack. We'll change the width of it to fit content and the height is already to fit content, so we don't have any problem with that. So everything is now centralized because by setting the logo and the menu to a stack and the button to a stack, it just shifted the remaining text to the center of the frame. That's actually nice. Let's do a little documentation. You select the frame of the logo and the menu and change the content to logo plus menu. If you take a closer look, you see that the left hand side is just by the edge, there's no padding. Same thing for the right hand side. So we simply set the padding, select the top nav, go to your padding. We set a padding of 20 pixels to the right hand side. Sorry, this is supposed to be 20, not 29. So 20 pixels to the right hand side and 20 pixels to the left hand side. So everything is now giving this breathing space. Taking a look from the main design, we thought we have set the menu and the logo, it's on the left hand side, and the button, it's on the right hand side. But when we reduce a viewport of it, you will notice that the hamburger icon that was tacked to this logo, it's now on the right hand side, and the button shifted its position to accommodate the hamburger icon. So how can we do this? Because when we go back to our main design, you will see that the hamburger icon is here, is grouped in a different stack, and the button is far away into another stack. So how do we bring this button from the right hand side to come in contact with the hamburger icon? Because if you can see here, we grouped the button to another stack, the text at the middle is blocking the stack, and what we wanted to link it to is just at the far end of the left. So how can we fix this? What we are going to be doing is to make a copy of this button. So Ctrl D on your keyboard, and we'll be cutting it, Ctrl X, then go to where you have the logo plus menu and paste it right there. So select it, Ctrl and V. We then group the button and the menu into another stack. So select the button and the menu here, Ctrl Alt Enter. We can now rename this as button plus menu, right? So button plus menu. So this is literally everything we need to create that responsive top nav. What we did right here is setting up, we like all the decoys to be activated in the mobile state, because what we are going to be doing now is to change the opacity of it to 0. So just wipe out the opacity of it because we don't want it to be on the desktop frame. The next thing we are going to be doing now is to turn this into a component so we can create that interaction. So select your top nav, right click, create a component. Top nav is go to row, then create component. Next up, we'll be adding a variant for the mobile screen, so just click that and the second variant is just there. So we are going to be focusing on this because this one is meant for the desktop. The one that concerns us is that for the mobile, which is the second variant. The first thing we are going to be doing is to change the width of it to 390 because that is the actual width of the mobile screen. We are almost there. We set the variant to, but before we do that, let's just rename this as mobile nav. Like I was saying, we change the direction of it to vertical and the distribute to start. We then do the same for the content frame that is housing all the elements. So select it, you change the direction to vertical and change the distribute to start. Next up, you select the content nav that is housing all the elements and set the height to fit content so we can see other elements that we need to automate. The second thing to do is to select the logo plus menu and change it to a height of 60. The reason why I change it to 60 is because that is the actual height of the main mobile nav. Do you remember those decoys that we set up on the desktop nav? We can now activate them. So select the button plus menu, go down to your opacity and change it to 1. On the main design, we had this section on the right hand side. So to do that, you select the logo plus menu frame and set the distribute to space between. So you go down to your distribute and set the space between. This will then spread and give a space at the center of it. You see the reason why we set up this section so that we can activate them later on the mobile frame. That's a very smart move. The next thing we are going to be doing is to select the mobile nav and set the height also to fit content. So if we didn't set up this section on the desktop frame, this is what we'll be contending with on how to change the direction of it to fit into the hamburger icon. I mean, that is near impossible. It's not even possible. Since we are no longer in use of this section, we are going to change the opacity to 0, just back to oblivion. Next up, you change the direction of this frame that is housing all the text to vertical. So just do this and you set the width of it to fit width. Because we want it to be at the left hand side, we are going to change the alignment to left. So everything is just going to align to the left hand side. The next thing we are going to be doing is to change the size of all this text, because it being on the mobile screen is actually small for it. So we can actually increase the size, but mind you, is a component and there's a component tied to it. Anything that we do here is going to affect all the variant that is tied to that component. So we'll go to the main component frame of the text to fix this issue. So we'll add another variant for this. You simply select the text and change the height to, let's just go with 20, hit enter. Then you change the color of it to white, because we don't want to create this interaction that we have here. So since we are creating a top nav that is fitting into a mobile screen, we don't need this interaction here. Let's just leave it the way it is on the white text. To effect all the changes that we did on the component canvas, you select all the text, the about us, more tutorials. Go to your properties menu where you have this hover component that we created a while ago. You change the variant from variant 1 to mobile text, and you will see we have that variant that we created on the main component canvas. This last text is touching the end of the frame, so that calls for a padding. So we are going to be adding a below padding of, let's just go with the same 20, and we are good to roll. Next up, we then look for elements that should be and shouldn't be on the drop down menu of the mobile navigation. The first one is the hamburger icon. This hamburger icon is supposed to be on the closed state of the mobile navigation. So we are simply going to change it. And remember that we created this interaction a while ago when we were mapping out elements for the top navigation. So I'm simply going to select the closed state of it for this action. The second one is this button. I don't want it to be visible on the drop down menu of the mobile nav. So you select the button and change the opacity to 0. Next up, we then create another variant for the closed state of the mobile navigation. So remember when I first said that we have to create 3 kinds of variant to achieve this responsive navigation thing. So simply add another variant. We then change the height of it from fit content to fixed and return it back to the 60 pixels that it was before. So this is where we need that hamburger icon. So let's just quickly flip this. So select the closed state and select the open state of it. Then for the button that we hit, we can also change its opacity to 1. So this is it, and change it to 1. So far so good. We have created 3 variants, one for the desktop, one for the mobile drop down, and the closed state of the mobile. So by previewing this, Ctrl and P, when we click the hamburger icon, it's supposed to lead us into the drop down menu of the mobile nav. But by clicking this, it's not just working. The reason behind this is because we have not applied an interaction between the normal state and the drop down menu. So I'm going to select the hamburger icon and drag this out, connect it to the first variant. Then for the closed state of the icon, I'm simply going to select it and connect it to the closed state of it. So by clicking the hamburger icon, it leads us now into the drop down state of the mobile nav. So the last thing to do now is to fix this into our design. But before then, let's change the variant 3 to closed state. When it comes to placing navs into your design, we cannot just copy it and paste it on the hero section. It doesn't work like that. So to place this the right way, we are simply going to paste it outside of the main section. So to do that, we are simply going to cut it, Ctrl X, select the desktop, not any frame inside of it. Select the desktop and hit Ctrl and V. You see the top nav appeared below our frame. So we can always readjust this using your arrow key. Let's just shift it and it will appear to the top. By previewing this, when we make a scroll on this design, you will notice one thing, that our top navigation moved with when we made a scroll, which is not supposed to be so. So the purpose of a top navigation is to remain at a fixed position for easy accessibility on our design. So how do we make this top nav to remain fixed at the top of the nav? It's pretty easy to do. You select your top navigation, head to the properties menu and change the type from relative to fixed. You then activate the right pane and change the figure there to 0. Do the same for the left hand side, activate it and change the value there to 0. So we want it to be fixed both on the left, right and the top. And that's why when we preview this, you will see that it's now at a fixed position. But we have just one pinky issue here. Where did our background fill of our top nav go to? Because now it seems like it went behind of the motion background. So how do we fix this? Head back to your design, and if you remember the lessons I taught you guys on Zindex, you simply apply that to this. So you set a higher index to bring our top navigation back to the front of the motion background. So you simply select the top nav, go down to your properties and change this index from 1 to around 3 pixels. So when you preview this again, you will notice that the background fill is back to normal, and by hovering through all these elements you will see the interactions that we set on it. But when we make a scroll, there's just this another problem on it. You will see that our element section is going above the top nav. Meanwhile, it's supposed to be going inside the top navigation. So this is just like a clash of Zindexes, because if you remember, we set a Zindex of 3 pixels on the element section for it to come to the front and let the animated background go to the back of it. But now, since we set the same value of Zindex for the top nav, now the top nav now supersedes all the elements on the hero section. So to fix this, we have to now bring the Zindex of the element section below 3 pixels. So this is something you really have to understand when it comes to hierarchy. So head back to the design, select the element section and change the index from the 3 pixels to around 2 pixels. I hope this works. So by previewing this once again, let's make a scroll. You will now notice that the element section now goes inside of the top nav. One last thing to finalize on the responsive top nav is the mobile screen. So you are simply going to select the top nav frame, go to the properties menu to where you have this top nav component and change the variant to the close state that we set it to be. So by pressing the hamburger icon, it doesn't work, like it's not working. It's only the interaction from the hamburger icon to the close state that's actually working. So what could be the problem? I think I know where this issue is coming from. Let me quickly show you guys how to go through this. So you select the variant for the mobile application, go down to the resizing option and check the height of it. So since it's in a fixed state, it's not going to drop down to that many because it's already at a fixed state of 60 pixels. So let's change it from fixed state to fit content. So by previewing this, by clicking the hamburger icon, you see it then drops down to the drop down menu of the top nav. Moving to the last part of this design, we are going to be focusing on how to apply a sticky scroll to this section. So this is from the main design. When I make a scroll, you will see that this text is in a fixed position, then the only thing that is moving are the cards. So when the cards get exhausted is when the whole section moves along into another frame. So I'm going to be showing you guys on how you can effectively make use of a sticky scroll to achieve something like this. The first thing we are going to be starting with is designing all these cards. We then select out a frame, F on your keyboard, and we'll be going with a height of 350 pixels. Then for the width of it, I'll be going with 480 pixels as well. We then turn this into a frame, but let's just rename this as sticky card. Like I said, we'll be turning this into a stack, so just do this right away. Then also for the color, we'll be changing that to black, but not overly black. So the second thing I'll be adding is an image holder that will hold the image that I want to bring in into the stack. So F on your keyboard again, select out a frame inside of the card. You set the width to fill it. Then for the height, we can just manually increase it just like this. So I want this frame here to stick to the top of this sticky card. So to control the behavior of the primary frame, we simply go to the parent frame. So you click the card, under the stack option, you change the distribute from center to start. It doesn't end there, we have to align it to the top. The second thing we are going to be doing is to insert an image into it. But before then, let's rename this as image holder. Then also be turning this frame into a stack. So just go down to your layout and click the stack option. So to add an image into this frame, we have to go through the fill. Then the last option on the row is where you can now insert an image. Let me just quickly do this. After bringing in the image, it's time for us to apply our text. So I already copied it from the main design, so we don't just go through that stress of typing. So Ctrl and V, and this is it. Then change the color to white, Ctrl X to cut, select the sticky card, Ctrl and V to paste. Our text took a wrong direction because we want it to actually fall under the image and not in a horizontal part. So to control the behavior of the primary frame, you know where to go to. Select the sticky card, go down to the stack option and change the direction to vertical. So this fixes it. I'll be duplicating this for the subtext. Go down to the main design so we can just copy and paste. I'll be changing the size of the subtext. Let's go with something like 13 pixels. Then it's also on regular, so that's also good to go. I'll be changing the opacity of the color from 100 to around 60%. I'll be wrapping the subtext and the head text into another stack, so Ctrl Alt Enter, and simply going to correct the direction because I don't want it to be in a centered part. So change the distribute to start and also align it to the left hand side. I'll be reducing the gap between it to somewhere around here. Then for the individual text inside of it, I'll be changing the width from fit content to fill width, so you can actually fill the width of the present frame. I'll also do the same for the head text, change the width from fit content to fill. So we're done designing the card, but we are not just there yet, because from the main design you will notice that there's a padding that is wrapping this image section. So I'll be applying padding to the card, select the sticky card, go down to padding, and I'll be adding a padding of 10 pixels to the top, 10 to the right, then 10 to the left, so that we can have this nice padding on it. Then the next thing we are going to be doing is to round the corners of this card. So simply change the radius of it, go down to this place and change it to, let's go with 25 pixels. Then for the image holder, we are simply going to add a radius to it. So head down to your radius and apply a radius of 15 pixels, and we are good to roll. So we are done with this card and it's looking much more better than it was before. But we are not yet done because we have like 3 more to go. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, 3 more cards to go to complete this section. To change these images for other remaining cards that we are going to create without starting from afresh in creating a frame, putting our image holder and the text and all those stuffs. So to save time, we are simply going to set a component variable to this image holder. To select a component variable, we have to first set it to a component. To select the sticky card, right click, create a component. To set a component variable on this image holder, you select the image holder, go down to the fill, the same place where we added the image, there's like a plus there. You just have to click it, then click create variable. In this case, it's an image that we want to set to a variable, not the color. So we are simply going to select for the image. You don't really have to worry about renaming this image, is just good to roll. So now I can copy this card section, then I will have the ability to flip images from the sticky card component on the properties menu. So I'll be fast on this because we don't have time on our side. After adding all the images that I want to use for this sticky scroll, we have to then group everything in a stack. Ctrl Alt Enter to make sure it's set to a stack. So for the width of it, I would simply change it to fit content, and for the height, I'll also change it to fit content. The next thing to do, of course, is to bring this into the design. But on the second thought, we have not really brought out a frame that will house this section. So F on your keyboard, drag out a frame, set the width to fill width, and for the height, we have to extend it to at which we want that sticky scroll to take effect. So it's going to be a very big frame, so let's just increase it to somewhere around here. But since it's going outside of the frame, this issue can either come from the main desktop not being a fit content or the main section housing all the elements not being a fit content. By selecting the desktop, head down to the height, yep, it's set to fit content, then select the main section housing the whole design. You will see here that it's set to fixed, so let's simply change that to fit content and it will nicely adapt to the remaining height of the frame. Let's rename this as sticky section. Of course, we change this into a stack, so just go to your properties, change it to a stack, and also we will not be needing the fill color. After the frame section have been set up, we can now add this our card section. So Ctrl X, select the frame, Ctrl and V. The next thing to do here is to bring in our text. So this is the text we are going to be making use of. let me just copy this so we don't waste so much time on that. So head back to the main design, hit T on your keyboard and Ctrl and V. We'll change the height from 16 pixels to 50 pixels. Then also I'll be adding just a little width. Let's just go with medium on it. Now the last thing to do is to bring in a brighter color. Before we add this text into the sticky section, we have to make sure we fold this text into like a two-line thing, because with the width of it, the sticky section won't be able to accommodate both the text and the card frames. To fix this, you select the text, go down to this place where it says grow, and I'll be selecting auto height. With this, I can now fold the text to how we want it to be. So since we have folded it, the line space between the first and the second text is actually too much, because it's now looking like they are two separate texts. So we can reduce the line height. Let's just do this. So Ctrl X to cut, select the sticky section and Ctrl and V. For the sticky section, we don't want it to be in a vertical part, because from the main design, the text is on the left hand side and the card holder is on the right hand side. So we're simply going to change the direction. So select the sticky section, go to your properties menu and change the direction from vertical to horizontal. We can just flip this because the text is the one on the left hand side. For the text, we want it to stick to the top of this section, but we don't just have the ability to do that, because when we bring it to the top, because of the stack that we set on it, it returns back to the position it was. So how do we solve this issue so that this text here can be somewhere around here? So using a stack also have its own downside, bear that in mind. But to solve this, we have to use a stack to correct that. So I'll be wrapping this text in a stack, Ctrl Alt Enter. For the width of it, I'll be setting it to fit content. Then for the height, this is where we correct everything by setting it from fit content to fixed. I'll be setting a value of 1400 pixels. It's easier this way to correct the position of this text, because to control the behavior of the primary frame or the primary text, we have to go to the main stack that's wrapping it. So by selecting the main stack, go down to your layout option. I'll be aligning this to the top. Now our cards are ready, the text is also ready. The next thing to do is to apply a sticky scroll to this text. So to do that, you select the text, you go to the properties menu. On the type of it, it's set to relative on default. So we're simply going to change it from relative to sticky. So by previewing this, let's check if the text is actually on a sticky position. Scrolling to the section where we added our sticky effect, it's not working. Though we set a sticky effect on this text and it's supposed to work, but it's not working. So this is it. To set a sticky effect, we have to put other measures in check. To get a sticky effect to work, we have to make sure that all the parent frame within the section is set to overflow visible. And now I'm speaking a lot of grammar now, but let me just break it down for you. So when I said we have to set all the parent frame to overflow visible, what do I mean? So first of all, we have to note the frames that are the parent frame in this design. So one of them is the stack wrapping the text. The second one is the sticky section wrapping both the text and the card section. Then the third one is the main section that is housing all the elements on this frame. Then the fourth parent frame is simply the desktop that's wrapping the overall element. Starting with the stack wrapping the text, you select it, go down to your properties and look for where you have. So by default it's set to hidden. We'll be changing it to visible. We will then do the same for the sticky section. Go down to overflow, change it to visible. You go to the main section, go down to overflow, change it to visible. Then the last one, which is the desktop, you simply change that to overflow visible. After setting all the parent frame to overflow visible, let's check if that actually worked. Scrolling to where we have the text, you will see it actually worked in a way. It's just that the text is not really at the right position. We want it to be somewhere at the center here, but it's just sticking to the top of the frame. Go down to where you made this sticky position. You see a new value called top. We're going to be adding a 200 pixels to it, and let's check that one more time. Scrolling down to where we have the text, our text is no more sticking to the top of the frame, rather it's just at the center where we want it to be. So we have actually made progress in creating this sticky scroll, but there's one more thing that we have to finalize to make sure we create that perfect sticky scroll effect. Let me go to the main design so I can show you guys what I'm talking about. Going down to that sticky section, let me show you guys the difference between the sticky effect we created and from the main one. So when I'm trying to scroll, you will notice one thing, that the cards are stacking up in the same position where the text is set to a sticky position. So how do we create this kind of sticky scroll that both the text and the cards are also in a sticky position? So the work of the cards is just to be stacking up in the same position where we set this text to sticky. Then it only moves to the main section when all the cards are exhausted. So on our own design, let me just show you what we did. From the one we created, you will see the cards are just scrolling away out of sight. But from the main design I created, the cards were also stacking up in the same position where I set the text to sticky. So to fix this, we are simply going to apply sticky effect to all the cards. So we're going to be selecting all the cards here, 3, one more to go. Then we change the type from relative to sticky. By previewing this, going down to that section, yes, I expected it not to work. I'm sure you can spot the problem why this stuff is not maintaining that sticky position. It's because the parent frame that is wrapping this card is not set to overflow visible. So you really have to be conscious in small details like this. So head back to the design. So select the stack that is wrapping all the cards and set it to overflow visible. So by previewing this should work now. Scrolling down to where we have the cards, you will see it actually worked. It's just that they are stacking up at the top. So you already know how to fix this. We add a top value to it. To select all the cards inside the frame stack and add a padding of 150 pixels. We can also choose to add a top value to the stack that is wrapping the cards. Select the stack wrapping all the cards. Go to the properties panel. On the position is on relative, and for us to add a top value to it means that we have to change it into a sticky position. So change it from relative to sticky, then we can now add 200 pixels to it. We're going to be checking this out again. Scroll down and you see it's no more sticking to the top of our frame. So this is how you can use sticky position to your advantage. Let's just play with something. This is a little bit of this tutorial, but I just felt we should play a little bit with these cards. So what I want to do here is this. I want the cards to rotate in a way when they are scrolling into this section. So I'll be making use of scroll transform to achieve this. The scroll transform effect I want to add is going to be from the second card downwards. I don't want to attach any effect to the first card. You select the second card, go to the properties, select effect. We are going to begin with scroll transform. On the setting of this effect, we are going to be adding from the from state. Let's change the opacity to 1 and the scale to 1. Then from the to state, this is when it's coming into the section. So the opacity is 1 and the scale is 1. But the rotation, we are going to be tilting it a little bit. Let's go with like 10 pixels. So to paste this effect on other cards without starting from our first, you can actually copy the effect. So right click on the scroll transform effect and click copy. You then select the second card and paste it on the effect panel. You then go to the to state. From the second card, we set a rotation of 10 pixels to it. Because of the way I want it to transition into the frame, I would like to change it to the opposite direction of 10 pixels, which is -10. So you can tilt the opposite side of what the second card was. So that is it. We are simply going to add to the last variant, then you copy and paste. For the last card, we are not going to add in any extra rotation to it because the way that I have patterned this whole thing, the second card is carrying a rotation of 10 pixels, while the third card is carrying a rotation of -10. Then the last card should carry a rotation of 10 so that it can be all even. So let me preview this so you can understand better what I just did. Scrolling to the section of the cards, you see the first card took that 10 rotation that we set it to be. Then for the second one, it's the opposite direction of 10, which is -10. Then the last one should be 10. So everything is just stacking up in one position. So you can play with all the stuffs. This is what I just really wanted to show you on how you can just play around with things in Framer. The last thing for this design tutorial is to optimize our design for other breakpoints, because you can see so many things are going wrong here. So the reason why you can see all those frames outside of the design is because of the overflow visible that is set on the desktop. So when you set a frame or a desktop to overflow visible, it has its own downside. So we'll just try our best on how we can optimize this to fit into all the screens. We'll be starting with the hero section. All the text cannot be the same for the 3 breakpoints, because if you take a look here, I think what is missing here is advanced. Of course, we'll be reducing the size of the text, but let's do that in a more professional level. So I'm going to be making use of rem values to create a responsive text throughout our breakpoint. So we don't just have this issue in trying to resize the text of each of the individual breakpoints. In order for us to use rem values well, we have to set what we call a base to our design. So select the desktop. On the properties menu, you will see this typography base here. We're simply going to change it to 40 pixels. We'll do the same thing for the tablet, but the base would be 30 pixels. Then for the mobile screen, we will then choose a base of 20 pixels. We can now make use of rem values to create a responsive text throughout our breakpoint. You all know that whatever effects we add on the desktop nicely reflect on the tablet and on the phone. So I'm going to select the hero section text, the advanced Framer tutorial with no code. So you go down to the size of the text. I'll simply change this from pixels to rem. So when I changed it to rem, it created a responsive text based on what the base was. So based on what the base was, it created a responsive text for other breakpoints. So we can now say that a rem value is like a multiplier of a base. So we can set a base and a rem value will just multiply the base of what we set. This might sound a little confusing, but you will understand it more better if you use this tool more often. So I want this tutorial with no code to be on the second line, just like how we have it on the hero section. So do not forget I will first set a value called max width when we're starting this whole structuring thing. So select the hero section text. We are going to be given a max width of, let's just say 600. And that will fix itself, so this is good to roll. So let's take a look at the phone breakpoint on what we can fix here. You will see that the hero section is kind of too large. Let's reduce this. We can also reduce the animated background to somewhere around here. Then we can also reduce the size of the hero section to somewhere around here. I think this will do. Then looking at this, you will see we actually need padding between these two elements. So select the stack and add a padding, just a little padding on it. To fix this card section, is looking like one big stress like that, but we can fix this under 2 minutes. So what we are going to be doing is to reduce the size of all the individual cards in it, because the sticky section of the tablet version cannot accommodate the text and the card section. So I'm selecting all the individual cards inside the stack. Do this, and one last one. I'll be setting the width of it to 400 pixels. So the next thing to touch here is to reduce the size of the text. So I'll be selecting it and change the size to 30 pixels. Next up, we'll be reducing the size of this frame to fit the text. So we should have something like this. So you saw how easy it was for us to optimize for the tablet version. One last thing to finish things up in the tablet version is to add padding on both sides. So I'll be adding a padding of 40 pixels on the right, 40 pixels on the left, and we are good to go. So the next thing we are going to be focusing now is on the mobile version. For the mobile screen, the first thing we are going to be doing is to change the direction of the sticky section, because that sticky effect we set on the desktop is only applicable to the desktop and to the tablet just because of the width of the frame. So since we are dealing with a small width, we don't have to use that sticky effect. So we are going to select the sticky section and change the direction to vertical. Next up, I'll be reducing the size of this stack frame, because the main reason why we created it is to create how long we want that sticky effect to take place. But since we're not using it on the mobile screen, let's quickly change that to fit content. So let's wrap up things with the text before moving into optimizing other cards. So I'll be first selecting the stack wrapping the text and changing the width to fill. Then next up is to select the text inside the stack and also change it to 50 width. Of course, we'll be reducing the size to 30 pixels So let's just go with 30. So let's wrap up things with the card section. Select the stack wrapping all the cards and set it to fill width. So we are not yet done because the individual cards are not set to fill width. So select all the cards in it. I'll just do that from the properties. Then set the width of it to fill. And there you go, your perfect responsive card just adopted into the mobile screen. So that's how easy you can optimize your breakpoint even when we have used overflow visible to turn things around. But since we're using the stack, it was very easy for us to optimize things out. So if you preview this now and we use it to other breakpoints, you see how responsive it is. Like, it's so responsive. So scroll down. Okay, that's shabby rotation we did there, still there. But if we reduce it, you see everything is fully responsive. So this is how you can use stack to your advantage. One last thing to wrap up with this tutorial is to add few effects to the text. So let me show you what we are going to be doing from the main design. So when I preview this, you'll see how all the text came into view. Like, it's so beautiful. So we are going to be replicating same. Go back to the main design, select the hero section, click effect, and on this one we are going to be selecting the text effect. I'll be leaving the trigger as on appear. Then what I'm going to be changing here is the pair. So I'll be changing from character to word. So by changing it to word, the preset automatically changed to custom. So one last thing that we're going to be correcting here is the delay. So I'll be adding a value of 0.4 seconds to it. So this means that when we refresh the page or the design, it's going to take 0.4 seconds for the head text to show up on the section. So this is good. Let's just preview it. So let me reload this again so you can see it. It's very beautiful. So we are going to be replicating same thing on other design. So I've taught you how to copy effects. Just right click and hit the copy button. I'll be applying the same effect on the subtext. So just paste it, right click and paste effect. But one thing we are going to be tweaking here is the delay, because I don't want everything to come in at the same time. So I'll be change this to, let's go with 0.6. So let me load this again. You see that the first text came in before the second text. So this is based on hierarchy because I didn't want everything to show up at the same time. So I'm going to apply the same text effect on the button. But if I try to paste it, you will see I can't paste the effect. So the reason behind this is that the effect you pasted on the text is a text effect, and we can't carry a text effect to put in a button. It won't work. So in this case, we are going to go with appear. It's still almost the same thing. On the appear effect, I will enter the enter state, then the transition. Then for the physics, I'll be adding a dampen so I can create this smooth entry on it. For the delay, remember I set a delay of 0.6 on the subtext. So the delay of the button should be around 0.8 because I don't want everything to coming into the section at once. So by previewing this, the first text came in, the second text, and the last button. So you see how easy it is to add interaction in Framer. So that's everything for this course. If you want to publish this design, you can just click the publish button. It doesn't take more than a minute to publish. We can now go to this site to view our live website. So this is an actual live website. Everything is functional. So let me just unpublish this back because I don't want it to be live. So in this course, you're able to learn everything about setting up your desktop for a responsive design, creating your hero section, how to add effects on your button, and how to add a gradient field to your hero section, how to make use of sticky effects, scroll transform. I mean, there are lots that we learned in this course. So if you're on my channel for the first time, click that like button, subscribe. So until next time, keep designing. I'm really tired.